Here's 5 blues licks that sound amazing, are really easy to learn, and you can use in pretty much any song. Now, all the licks I'm playing today are based around the A minor pentatonic scale. If you want to learn a little bit more about the pentatonic scale and how you can start moving these licks into different keys and maybe start making some of your own, then I've got a quick video in the description that you can check out after this one. So let's get going with this first lick. It's really simple, but there's quite a bit going on. So I'll break this lick down into 3 parts. So we're starting with, and then we've got, and then we've got. So first up we've got, which is just the 10th fret on the first string. We're doing a really short and sharp bend, and we're bending it up to the pitch of the 11th fret. And what we're doing is we're stopping the bend once it reaches that pitch with our picking hand. So we're going, and I'm just pressing down on the string with my finger to stop it from ringing out. And then after that, we're just playing the 10th fret again. So that gives us... Now what's interesting is that the 11th fret, which is an E flat, isn't in the A minor pentatonic scale. It's what's called the blues note. So if I play the scale for you now, that's it normally. But if we add the blues note, it just sounds a little bit more interesting and instantly gives it that bluesy flavour. So by bending up to it, we're just adding a little bit more character to our lick. Now we've got this bit which goes like this. So all we're doing, we're still on the first string, we're playing the 8th fret, and we're going to do a hammer on to the 10th fret, and then a pull off back to the 8th, but really quickly. So then we're going to play the 10th fret on the second string, and then back to the 8th fret on the first string. So that gives us, and then we're just capping it off with this. So all we're doing is we're on the 9th fret of the third string, the 8th fret of the second string, and then we're doing a really quick hammer on from the 8th fret to the 10th fret, all on the second string, and I'm just finishing it off with some vibrato on the 10th fret. Now on the tab, you'll see that the 8 is really small compared to the 10, and that's because it's what's called a grace note, meaning that it doesn't really have its own timing and it's not essential for it to be there. It's just a little piece of decoration to add, again, a little bit of character to our lick. So here's what it would sound like without it, which is fine, but just by adding in that grace note, it just adds a little bit of extra something to our lick to make it sound a little bit more interesting. Now we're going to look at some unison bends, which are a real staple of blues and blues rock playing. Think Stevie Ray Vaughan and that whole Texas blues style of playing. Again, I'll break this one down into little sections. So we're starting off actually on the blues note this time. We're starting off on the 6th fret of the 5th string. And what I'm doing, I'm palm muting by resting the edge of my palm there just next to the bridge to get that nice dull thuddy sound. So we're playing the 6th fret, then the 7th fret of the same string, then the 5th fret of the 4th string, and then the 7th fret of the 4th string. So, and that gives us a nice little bluesy ascent into the lick. Now we're on to the unison bends, and all that means is we're bending 2 strings at the same time, like this. It gives it that really nice thick sound. So what we're doing is we're playing the 5th frets of the 2nd and 3rd strings, just with one finger, this finger here, and we're doing a short bend up, and then we're releasing the bend back down like this. Just doing that really quickly. As a little tip for single finger unison bends, it's much easier to bend it by pulling down than it is to push up like you usually would. Then after that unison bend, we're going back to the 7th fret of the 4th string. I like to palm mute it, but you don't have to. And then we're going back to that unison bend again, but instead of doing a bend and return this time, we're just doing a bend. So then we're going to the 7th fret of the 2nd and 3rd string, and then playing it again, but doing a full bend, and just really dragging that bend out. And because we're using 2 fingers, we can bend it upwards like normal. Then we're finishing this lick off by going to the 7th fret of the 4th string, and then doing that bend and return again on the 5th frets of the 2nd and 3rd, and then back to the 7th fret to finish it off on the 4th string. This next lick is inspired by a more traditional Delta blues style of playing, the kind that you might hear on a Robert Johnson or Muddy Waters song, but it's still really versatile and you can use it in pretty much any blues context. So we're just repeating this little phrase over and over again, but it sounds really, really good. So what we're doing is we're bending the 7th fret of the 3rd string just up to the pitch of the 8th fret, which is that blues note again. So we're going, and then we're playing this double stop on the 1st and 2nd strings, the 5th fret, like that. Now, there's a couple of different ways that you can pick this, depending on what's easier for you. You can just go downstrokes like that, so all downstrokes. Or what I like to do is alternate, so down, down, up. And I just find that is a little bit easier on my picking hand rather than the rhythm that we're going for this lick, and the other ones that we've covered so far, is what's called shuffle time. And it's really important to know about if you want to get into blues music, and it's also really easy to understand. All we're doing is we're taking each beat of the bar, so 1, 2, 3, 4. We're just dividing each of those beats into 3, or into triplets. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And it just gives it that really swingy feel that really comes through in this lick. And once we've looped through that for a bar, what we're going to do is just finish it off by going. And this is another unison bend, but slightly different to what we've done so far. So we're playing the 2nd string, the 5th fret, and the 3rd string, 7th fret. We're going to play them at the same time, but we're going to bend the 7th fret until it reaches the pitch of the 5th fret. And the reason that we're doing that, it's just a nice way to cap off this lick, and it's a really, really common trick used in a lot of blues and rock music, so it's really handy to know about. Now, that lick was pretty straightforward, so I'll throw in another one for you that's kind of the same idea. We're playing that triplet feel, but it's a little bit different, a little bit more of that Robert Johnson sound. So we're going... Sounds really nasty, but in a good way. It will really stand out if you throw this one into a solo. So what we're doing is we're playing the 8th fret of the 1st string and the 7th fret of the 2nd string. And we're playing it as a double stop. And interestingly, again, the 7th fret isn't part of our minor pentatonic scale. So it's another outside note, but it gives us that really angular sound that I really like. I think it's an F sharp diminished chord when it's played over an A, and it certainly has that sort of diminished sound to it. But what we're doing is we're taking that shape and just scoot it down a fret so we can slide up into that note. And we're doing that at the first of each of the triplets. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, like that. And the reason that we're sliding up is because it gives us that authentic sounding slide guitar sound that you'll hear on a lot of older blues records. Now, one thing that I like to do is, instead of sliding up into it, which does sound good, is I like to just play it by itself, but bend it really slowly over the course of the entire lick. So that gives us like that. And that builds a lot of tension that we can cap off with something like we learnt in our first lick. So it's a really nice tension builder, and yeah, really, really cool sounding. So now we've got a lick that comes from blues music, but you'll definitely have heard it in rock music too. So we're starting off with a bend on the 7th fret of the 3rd string, Then we're playing the 5th fret of the 2nd string, the 5th fret of the 1st, back to the 5th fret of the 2nd, and then finishing with that big bend on the 8th fret of the 2nd string, up to the pitch of the 5th fret of the 1st. But we're not doing a unison bend this time. You could, be a little bit awkward. And like the other licks here, you can mess around with the timing and the phrasing to get a different feel to it. So if we want that shuffle feel again, instead of playing the full lick, we can go. So instead of going back to that 5th fret on the 2nd string, we can just skip that. And that gives us the nice triplet. And what's great about this lick is it sets us up to play something else. So it's a really good entry lick. Something like that. It's a really, really good one for teeing up another lick. Finally, here's a bit of a tricky lick for you, but it's definitely something that you can work up to, and I think it sounds really, really cool. So this lick is what's called a run, and you'll hear this all over Joe Bonamassa's style of playing, and Eric Johnson, who really inspired Joe Bonamassa. And all we're doing is we're working our way down the first position of the minor pentatonic scale, so it's nothing too technical that we're doing, but the trickiness comes from the picking and getting that speed down. And what I'll recommend is just really taking this one slow. It's really important to build up the muscle memory in your hands and the coordination, because otherwise it'll just sound like a complete mess and you won't get the sound that you want. But if you take it slow and really build up that finger knowledge, the speed will come. It will just naturally follow. So it might be a little bit painful to start with, but just take it slow. The speed will come, I promise. So I'm going to break this lick down into 2 parts. So we've got part 1 and then part 2. So you can see it's not that scary. It's just the speed. So what we're doing is we're starting off on the 8th fret of the 1st string. Then we're going to the 5th fret. Then we're going to go to the 8th fret of the 2nd string. Then to the 5th fret. And then we're going to the 7th fret of the 3rd string. So that gives us... Then we've got this bit. So we're going to the 8th fret of the 2nd string again. Then the 5th fret of the 2nd, the 7th fret of the 3rd, the 5th fret of the 3rd, then the 7th fret of the 4th string, the 7th fret of the 3rd, and then the 5th fret. So... And what's great about this lick is we can take the idea and start applying it to different places on the pentatonic scale. Which is why it's a good idea to check out my other video on the pentatonic scale, because that will show you all the places that you can take this on the fretboard, as well as how to move this lick and all the other ones that I've shown you today into different keys, which is really important because you're not always going to be playing in A.